Time for a Soccer Down Here 1v1. We catch up with the Academy Director of Atlanta United, Matt Lawrey. Matt, as always, it's great to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out for a 1v1.
Thanks for having me, John. Always appreciate it.
All right. Most recently, the two season has completed, and it was a chance for a lot of players who have come through the system to shine. You know, we got to see Aiden Torres and Sean Lanza and Luke Brennan and a lot of familiar names that have worked their way through with Atlanta United too. From a director's standpoint, what was it like for you to look at those players and their continued growth as they continue to integrate in what Atlanta United wants Atlanta United to be?
Absolutely. I think it's the most fun of it is watching the growth in the twos. We know that the minute Aiden Torres, who was 15 years old when he first got into twos training, forget games, just the train environment, there's a moment of excitement, and also it's going to take some time. So that's kind of the fun of it, is how do they develop over time? Some kids are going to go in and they're going to start to progress really quickly, and then there might be a little plateau. Some kids are going to take some time. Aiden was one that I think hit the ground running, impressed the coaches from day one, and then just kept building. And then you saw a young 15-year-old who, for me, was one of the better players against Columbus Crew 2 the other night. So it's really exciting to see his development, but none of us have a crystal ball. So the twos just offer us a wonderful experience. It's close to the MLS. There's professional players. There's older guys out there. It's a professional environment, but it gives them a chance to fail. And they need that moment to progress, to fail, to have their successes, to have their good moments and their bad moments. And then we see where they're at the end of it. But it's been a really fun year to watch these young kids grow and develop and mature.
At the same time, you mentioned the opportunity to grow and succeed, and then the opportunity to fail and to learn. And so after those learning moments, what are the conversations like with these young athletes, where we know that those of us of a certain vintage, back in the days of black and white television, back in the 1920s and 30s, we would have our elders respond to us a certain way when it comes to how we would perform in our sport. What are the conversations like these days with athletes? I imagine that they vary from person to person. So I guess it's the two-part question. What are those conversations like, and how does the academy and the directors and the staff manage these conversations with all the different personalities?
Great question. And you're right. No, every kid is going to be a little bit different. How they receive information is a little bit different. So we try to have a good sense of their personality. And the great thing about being part of an academy is we get 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 years. We've gotten a lot of time with Luke Brennan before he went in with the twos. So we knew exactly how to talk to him. All of our players are spoken to, especially those younger kids, and usually backed up with video. Here's how you played. Some of those clips will be really nice and quick. Just wanted to show you a couple things you did well, a couple things you didn't do so well. Sometimes we'll sit and watch a whole game with the player if we feel that's what they need, and it was a big learning moment for them. But we have coaches in the academy system that are linked with certain players. So for instance, Aiden Torres, as soon as he finishes up, he's speaking to Kevin Kratz within our academy, and he's talking about how that game went. Kevin being a good one because he played the same kind of position as Aiden Torres. But we always have academy coaches linked with our top prospects and our players in that environment, so that it's a consistent message, and that coach can get a really good understanding of what makes that player tick, and vice versa. Because we're hoping that's not just, here, buddy, here's how you did. It's more of, how do you think you did? Give me some feedback, Aiden. What do you think about this touch? And then through that conversation, we really start to get somewhere in terms of, again, growing with the player.
Because at the same time, I believe, as I'm processing your conversations here, the player can give you answers of their own ideas as to how they think they're progressing in a certain situation, and get that immediate feedback from those coaches and those individuals who have the experience that can add to that whole conversation. Player says one thing, player with experience who's now a coach says this, and you get that combination of ideas across generations.
Absolutely. And I think one really fun, cool thing that we've done this year is Ozzy Alonso. Ozzy Alonso came in. He was able to play a little bit with our twos mid-year after he rehabbed from some injuries. He's an older guy. I mean, the amount of knowledge in that guy's brain is immense. And he's someone that we had sit down with 2 of our young prospects, Aiden being one of those, and just talked through, watched a bit of video of Ozzy playing, watched a little video of the young boys playing, and he was able to kind of give some knowledge as well. So we're pretty open-ended in terms of how much we communicate and how much knowledge we try to get in front of these young kids. But Atlanta is a cool place to be from that scenario. So you'll have coaches speak to you. You'll have guys that are out there with the first team speak to you and make sure that they care about your development as well. So it's a lot of fun.
I also find it interesting that there is the fast food drive-through approach, and then there's the full meal approach, where it's like, okay, clip, 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 clip. What do you think? And then full game. What do you think? I think that that's another interesting aspect because of attention spans with younger generations and younger athletes and things like that. That you have to do things a bunch of different ways to get the message across.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. The newer generation is pretty good at taking in video, but they want it in quick snips, right? So we'll also do something where we just send them something that evening. Hey, watch these 6 or 7 clips. Don't worry about it. Just, sleep on it. And then tomorrow, let's talk about what you saw and what kind of things you did. So I think variability of how they see the info and how they get the info, that's key.
So then let me flip that 180 degrees. What's it like for coaches and directors to do things both in the full meal, 5-course meal context, and then have to adjust their way of thinking? Because, we're watching old film, we're watching whole games as we're growing up these days. I imagine for the coaches and directors, it's also a bit of an adjustment having to sit there and try to think of things in short sound bites and short clips too, huh?
Absolutely. They need to be really aware of the human being that they're speaking to, knowing what kind of background they come from, what kind of kid are they, what's their learning background. I mean, there's some players that, again, don't quite have the educational foundation that others may have. And we need to understand that. Where is this player starting from? But the biggest thing that we always talk to with our staff is read the nonverbals, look at your player. If he's sitting there, cross-armed and hunched over his shoulders, something's going wrong here. He's not opening up to the information that you're telling him. So start to do something differently. But we always need to make sure that we're teaching and speaking in a way that the player understands and can retain that information. Otherwise, we're just talking.
How much learning do you, as an academy director, and your fellow coaches do these days when it comes to learning how to teach, learning how to adjust how you teach? How much learning is going on from the teaching standpoint?
I hope constantly, but in terms of speaking to them specifically about teaching techniques, we do coach and education meetings every other week. We're starting to do them a little bit more. And a lot of it is talking about we're teaching human beings, we're teaching young human beings. So yes, soccer is the subject matter, but how do we really ingrain these ideas into them? Doug Lemov is an author that we actually work with quite a lot. He specializes in teaching teachers. He's got some unbelievable books out about how your normal math teacher in high school can have better techniques of getting this info across. We've grabbed it, stolen it, and we've put it into sports. And Doug is someone who's actually come into the academy and helped us with these aspects before. So it's huge. Soccer is what we think about all the time, but to transfer that information to young men, that's really our job. So we need to make sure we're speaking in the way they understand us.
How much have you learned, and I guess what have you learned from your time with Atlanta United that has made you more three-dimensional when it comes to being a teacher / instructor / director?
I think coming up, I was a coach. I had always been a coach, and I came from a youth coaching background. I was not a pro. I was never anywhere near to being a pro, such as Kevin Kratz or Jack Collison or some of the guys we've come through. So my learning was a lot of me. How can I get better at coaching these kids? When I became a director, I had to realize that I am not the smartest man in the room by any means. And I need to make sure that delegation is the most important thing. So I am constantly leaning on my staff. What could have been better here? You were close to this situation. What could we do here? It's not as much a director telling others what to do. It's please give us feedback. Give me feedback. They're closer to the player. They're closer to the game. They're closer to the field than I am now. So making sure that I listen. But at the end of the day, we have to make a decision as a club as well, which direction we're going to go. But I think that was a huge learning curve for me coming from coach to director is lean into the guys around you and girls as much as possible and make sure they have a voice.
Because at the same time, there's that old adage, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And that has to apply as well.
Super easy for me to do. But listening to those smart people, that was the key, is really making sure that they had a voice and they had also the freedom to raise their hand and go, I disagree with that. That takes a certain amount of time to develop that culture. I'm pretty proud of the academy culture here. I think we're there. We're getting closer every day.
When it comes to the academy in and of itself, and you want to bring a prospective athlete / student athlete in, what kind of individual are you looking for to bring in under the tent to continue to do things in the Atlanta United way?
Great question. We'll be talking about our twos roster over the next couple months. It's kind of a fun part of the year, but being a good human is number one. And I know it's easy to say, but we come from Arthur Blank. He's our owner. The kind of core values and the type of human that we want involved in our company, that's come all the way from the top. And we're huge believers in it. They have to be humble, they have to be hardworking, and there has to be that little bit of selflessness to them. Not easy sometimes in today's soccer ecosystem, but playing for your teammates, playing for the guy next to you is so key for us. And just the physical piece of work rate. We need players that are going to be able to sustain working extremely hard. You've seen Atlanta United play. We are aggressive in transition. When we lose it, we want it back. When we win it, we want to attack. We want to run. We want to get at teams. These guys need to physically be able to withstand that. So I would say their mentality, who they are as a human being, and their work rate physically, if they can handle our style of play, are the two big things that we need to understand quickly.
And at the same time, though, in the whole idea of being a quality human being, they get the chance to learn that early on. You've got the activities in the community, being there, representing Atlanta United. All of those aspects are a part of this, too. For anybody that wants to come under the tent, they've got to know this coming in.
100%. I mean, it's a big club, and we're one club. Doesn't matter if you're coming at the academy level, the twos level, or the first team level. We need to be around for each other all the time. And we're really big on the community aspects, getting our kids out into the community, doing things, giving back. It's a huge part of our system.
When you look at how things have just continued to grow and evolve, where I think it's safe to say that Atlanta United is a grande. They are one of those organizations / franchises, regardless of where we're talking on this planet, that gets noticed. And when your phone or WhatsApp or however you handle international communication or communication in general blows up, what's it like to get feedback from other academies, other franchises, other teams around the world? And how does that information, how is that shared? And what do you guys talk about when you're talking amongst yourselves as academies?
I think the United States, not just Atlanta United, has worked extremely hard. There's many people to thank for this, but we have some good young players coming through. It's going to be exciting. And I think the world is starting to notice that. 2026 in the World Cup, they're really going to start to notice that. Caleb Wiley is making them notice even more, one of many names, but there's starting to be some young players that are American that are really exciting at young ages. So that's the first aspect from the international phase is, wow, there's for the past 20 years, there's been a little bit of, the American guys, don't worry about them. Now there's a different feel to those conversations. There's more interest in those conversations. It comes with a compliment. It's nice to hear, but it comes with a little bit of pressure as well. Because with performance comes agents being very interested, other clubs being very interested, which could be good or could be bad. And there's some people in the game that do good things. There's some people in the game that want to make a buck. So I think it's just being aware of who we are, making sure that, yes, as people notice Atlanta United more and more, stay in Atlanta United, continue to be us, continue to give back to the community, to give back to Atlanta, give back to Atlanta kids. Caleb Wiley was born and raised in Virginia Highlands. That's the kind of story that we want to keep telling. So that's what I tell my staff is when people look, be really proud of it, but make sure that you act in the proper way. Make sure you always represent Atlanta United at the very highest level. And that's what our ownership wants us to do.
I was going to say, you mentioned Caleb, and he is one of those examples. What's it like for you to see, I'll say the Southeast, state of Georgia, however, whatever geography you want to take. What's it like for you to continue to see things grow here in Atlanta, the Atlanta area, the ADI, the state of Georgia? What's it like to have Georgia being a player and a presence on the international scene?
I think it's so exciting. I came here in August of 2016, thanks to Tony Annan, who was the director at the time, and Caleb Wiley was one of the first players I saw. I was the U12 coach. He was on the U12 team. But at that time, I remember things weren't tangible for the players yet. It was still a little bit of a pipe dream, even for those U12 players, and Caleb Wiley was one of them. It was, I don't know if this is going to happen for me. Now you come down to our younger teams in the academy, it's real for them. They know Caleb Wiley came through the exact same system that they're going through now. It's so real. And I think that's where I get really excited as a director. Our 17s train in the morning. They're training 100 feet from the first team players. Sometimes they get grabbed and pulled into that training session because it's a need, and we need players to be able to help run around and make Tiago better in that moment. So it's just so real for them. You can reach out and touch it. And that closeness is just so exciting for a player. There's belief there. They can make it. They can do it. it's not just a pipe dream anymore. That realization to them is awesome.
We mentioned those conversations about, just in general. So what's a conversation like when a U17 gets pulled into practice and then it comes back out? What are those conversations like when you see the light come on for one of your academy players?
Yeah, the first thing you say is do not injure anyone. No kicking, no foul. That is number one. But no, they're really good. It's always a moment of excitement, a moment of nerves. But I think the fun of it is not when before they go in, it's when they come back out of training and you just see this mental exhaustion, but this happiness. Like, wow, they're so good, they're so fast, but I get to work harder knowing that, okay, I'm not ready for it yet, but I feel closer to it and I'm going to get back to work, and make sure that I can improve my game. But yeah, it's fun to watch those faces when they come out of first team training.
All right. So now that the 2 seasons over, when it comes to the other academy sides, what's the calendar like? What do folks need to be looking at when they're staring at documents and news and all of their favorite soccer websites? What's the calendar looking like for the academy coming up?
A lot of fun for the academy. Mid-October, we got some big games. We go down to Miami and then Orlando, which are always huge games for our boys. We'll do that mid-October. DC comes to us, Red Bulls comes for us, but the big event is early December. We're going to Phoenix. It's our big December event, kind of a precursor to Generation Adidas Cup, which is our big tournament in April. But Phoenix, Arizona, beginning of December, we'll be at Reach 11 Complex, our 15s and our 17s. Should be a lot of fun. It'll be all against MLS competitions, get to play some West Coast teams and see where we're at. Then a little bit of a break, and we're back at it in January. So all fun things here in the academy.
Looking forward to it. Matt Lawrey, Atlanta United Academy Director, thanks for hanging out with us. Give us an update on what's going on your side of things. Thanks for hanging out for a 1v1.
Always appreciate the time, John. Thanks for having me.